The sound of her head hitting stone did not echo. It landed once, heavy and final, and the rooftop dining room seemed to forget how to breathe. For a moment, everything held in place. A wine glass hovered midair. A fork paused above a pristine plate. A laugh died in someone's throat. Mila lay curled beside a tall planter, cheek pressed to cold marble. Her hoodie had twisted off one shoulder, stained and frayed, as if the fabric itself had been dragged through a hard life. A thin line of blood shone at her hairline, bright against her dark curls. Her knees were scraped raw. Her fingers were spread on the floor like she had tried to catch herself and failed. She made a small sound, more breath than cry, like she was trying to keep her pain from becoming a problem. The manager stood over her with hands half raised, caught between panic and performance. His face tightened with embarrassment first, then irritation, as if the child were the offense and the injury was an inconvenience. Henry Cole's chair slammed backward. The legs bit into the marble with a violent scrape that sliced through the room. Silver rattled against porcelain. Heads turned all at once now, drawn by the sudden shift in power. Henry was already moving before the manager found the right words. "Sir," the manager began, stepping in as if politeness could stop a man like Henry. "I am so sorry." She caused a disturbance. "These kids know how to." Henry did not slow. He dropped to one knee beside Mila, expensive fabric pressing into stone without hesitation. The air near the floor smelled different. Not butter and truffle and perfume, but metal and salt and something sharp that tightened the back of the throat. Henry's hands hovered above her for a beat, careful, controlled, the way he handled anything that mattered. Then he slid one hand behind her head, supporting it, feeling her pulse flutter fast beneath his palm. "Hey," he said, and the word came out rough. "Look at me." Mila blinked through tears. Her eyes were wide and dark, fixed on him with a certainty that landed like weight. "I did not mean to," she whispered. "I did not mean to be bad." Something in Henry's face shifted, not softened, cracked. "You did nothing wrong," he said, each word clipped and fierce. "Nothing. Do you hear me?" Mila nodded once, stiff and obedient. Like agreement was safer than hope. Henry reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded handkerchief. White, monogrammed, untouched. He pressed it gently to her forehead. For a breath, there was nothing but soundless focus, the hush of the room, Henry's steady inhale, Mila's tiny, uneven sob. Then the handkerchief began to change. A dark bloom spread through the cotton, slow at first, then certain, red seeping into white like truth, refusing to stay hidden. Across the room, a phone lifted, then another, then a third. The observer effect tightened like a noose. A screen caught Henry on one knee, Mila curled at his feet, the white cloth turning red. On another screen, bold letters flashed over the shaky video, a live caption forming as the moment unfolded. "Manager attacks child at Broadmoor." Another screen showed the same angle from a different table, the text updating fast, hungry, inevitable. "Somebody call the police." Another screen zoomed on the manager's face, his jaw clenched, his pride unraveling in public. The manager leaned in closer, voice dropping to a hiss meant to keep the room intact. "Sir, please, you cannot let her do this. She is manipulating you. She is disturbing the guests." Henry's eyes flicked down to Mila again before he looked up. He held her gaze for a beat, longer than necessary, as if he were trying to read something inside her eyes that did not belong to this room. Mila stared back without flinching, still gripping whatever dignity she had left as if it were a fragile thread. Henry rose without leaving her side. He stepped toward the manager, close enough to see sweat bead at the man's hairline, close enough to watch his throat tighten when he realized how many cameras were locked on him. The dining room noise dulled. Not because it disappeared, but because attention narrowed. The soft music overhead felt distant. The clink of cutlery sounded far away. Even the city lights behind the glass seemed to fade. Henry did not raise his voice. He leaned toward the manager's ear, and the threat came out as a whisper that made the man's skin go tight. "If you touch her again," Henry said softly, "you will never work in this city again." The manager froze. His eyes darted to the phones, to the glowing screens, to the live captions that were already painting him into a corner. His hands flexed at his sides, as if searching for an escape he could not find. "I did not know," he stammered, trying to claw back control. I thought she was lying. You knew she was a child, Henry said, still quiet. That should have been enough. The words landed heavier than a shout. The manager blinked, and the first true fear slid into his expression, the kind that arrives when a person realizes the world is watching and it will remember. Henry turned back to Mila. He slid one arm under her knees and the other behind her shoulders. Mila stiffened instantly, body locking with the reflex of being carried by people who did not mean safety. Her breath hitched. Then her fingers dug into Henry's blazer, gripping the fabric like it was the last thing in the world that might not vanish. "Daddy," she whispered, uncertain, like the word itself might get her punished. Henry did not correct her. He lowered Mila into the chair across from his table, gently, like glass. She sat hunched, shoulders tight, eyes never leaving him. A waiter approached, hovering at the edge of Henry's space, voice careful. "Sir, should I call someone?" "Yes," Henry said. "Water, soup, bread, anything warm." The waiter nodded quickly and disappeared. When the food arrived, steam curled from the bowl in thin white ribbons. The scent of broth rose warm and simple, almost out of place in a room built for luxury. A glass of water caught the light and threw it back in trembling reflections. Mila stared at the soup like it might vanish if she blinked. "Can I still eat?" she asked, voice small and cautious. "Or am I in trouble?" Henry swallowed hard. "You are not in trouble," he said. "And yes, you can eat." Mila broke off the smallest piece of bread. She chewed slowly, watching him the whole time, as if his promise was the real meal, as if the food was only proof that kindness could last longer than a moment. Henry kept one hand on the edge of her chair, steadying himself as much as her. The room buzzed with whispers and phones and live captions, but at Henry's table the air narrowed to 2 breaths and 1 blood-stained cloth. Mila swallowed. Her gaze flicked to Henry's wrist, to the faint glint of metal at his cuff, then back to his face. "You have his eyes," she said softly. Henry's fingers tightened on the chair. Mila's voice dropped even lower, as if the name itself was dangerous. "My daddy," she whispered. "Eric." The music seemed to cut out at once. For one clean beat, there was only silence. Then Henry's fork hit the plate with a loud, ringing clang that echoed through the room like something breaking. The word Eric left a bruise in the air. Mila's shoulders stayed pulled up, her chin tucked, as if one wrong breath would get her punished. She stared at the bread in her fingers like it was borrowed time. Henry forced his own hand to still. He set the fork down without looking at it. The metal kissed porcelain with a soft click that felt too loud in the sudden hush. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, voice low, meant only for her. "You told me something important. After, Sondid just coming a down stool." Mila watched his mouth more than his eyes, waiting for the switch. Adults always had a switch. Around them, the rooftop restaurant tightened with attention. Glass walls, city lights, the soft clatter of plates slowing, phones rising, screens reflecting Henry's face back at him in tiny rectangles. A flash blinked. Someone's live stream title hovered on a screen he glimpsed over a shoulder. "Manager attacks child at Broadmoor." The manager stood a few steps away, stiff and pale, sweating through his collar. He was trying to look apologetic without looking guilty. Henry glanced at the handkerchief in his palm. White cotton, navy initials stitched cleanly. Expensive, now stained with a child's blood, spreading into the fibers like a truth that refused to be scrubbed out. "This cloth cost more than it should," Henry murmured, eyes on the stain. Then he looked at Mila. "But it's not worth 1 drop of your blood. Quite pans." Mila blinked as if she didn't understand money could be spoken about like that. Her grip tightened around the broken toy in her lap, a cheap plastic figure with one arm missing. Henry reached for the clean cloth and water. He dabbed her forehead gently, then wiped dried blood from the edge of her eyebrow. The smell of soap rose soft and harmless against the sharper metallic scent of the cut. Mila flinched once, then went unnaturally still. Like she had learned long ago that stillness kept adults calm. As Henry wiped her fingers, a small curl of hair clung to the damp handkerchief, dark against the white. He didn't throw it away. He folded the bloodied cloth carefully, hair and all, and slipped it into a clear zip bag from the waiter's tray, sealing it with a quiet press of his thumb. A countdown he didn't name. a future answer he wasn't ready to hear. Mila noticed the bag. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Saving it," Henry said simply, "so no one can lie about you later." The manager stepped closer, throat working. "Mr. Cole, if you would just let me handle this privately." Henry turned his head slightly. "Not fully, just enough." "You've handled enough," Henry said, quiet as ice. "Step away from my table." The manager's mouth opened, then shut. He glanced at the phones, the flashing screens, the witnesses he could not control. His feet moved back on instinct. Henry looked back at Mila. "I'm moving you somewhere quieter," he said. "A safe room, okay?" Mila's eyes flicked to the exits, to the manager, to the strangers filming. Her breath came in shallow pulls. "Are you sending me away?" she asked. "No," Henry said, immediate. "I'm taking you with me." He offered his hand. Mila stared at it like a door she didn't know how to open. Then she placed her small fingers into his, cold and light. Her grip was timid, but it didn't let go. They moved through a discreet staff door. The rooftop glamour fell away into back corridors that smelled like lemon polish and sanitizer. Carpet swallowed footsteps. A service elevator waited, humming. When the doors opened, the ding sounded too bright. Mila squeezed Henry's hand hard at the sound. Henry squeezed back. "You're okay," he said, and the steadiness in his voice was something he'd built in boardrooms. He used it for her now. The private lounge downstairs was warm and dim. Leather seats, a low lamp casting amber light, soundproof walls that made the restaurant's buzzing distance feel like another planet. When the door shut, the outside world vanished. Mila exhaled in a shaky line, like her body had been holding its breath for days. A waiter slipped in with a tray. Water, ice wrapped in a towel, soup steaming gently, fresh bread. The scent of broth filled the room, simple and honest. Mila stared at the soup as if it might disappear for being looked at too directly. Henry slid it closer. "You eat," he said, slowly. Mila took a bite of bread so small it barely counted. She chewed while watching him, waiting for the moment he decided she was too much trouble. Henry crouched in front of her again. His eyes dropped to the toy with the missing arm. "What's his name?" Henry asked. Mila held it up a little. "Captain." Wally's. Henry studied the jagged place where the arm should have been. Then he reached into his pocket and removed a gold tie clip, sleek and heavy, the kind of thing that cost more than a month's rent in half the city. Mila's eyes widened. Henry didn't hesitate. He clipped it carefully into the broken joint like a prosthetic, angled so Captain could still stand, straight in her hands. "There," Henry said, voice soft. "Captain's got a new arm, stronger than before. Take." Mila stared at the toy, then at Henry, as if she didn't know adults were allowed to fix things instead of breaking them. Her lower lip trembled once. She swallowed it down. Do you want him back?" she asked, almost panicked. "Like gifts were always traps." "No," Henry said. "It's yours." Mila hugged Captain to her chest. The gold glinted under the lamp, absurd and perfect against cheap plastic. Henry took out his phone. The weight of it felt different now. Less tool, more lifeline. "I'm calling someone to help," he said. "A friend." Mila's chewing slowed. "The people who take kids?" "No," Henry said. "Not them." He dialed from memory. "Gregory," Henry said when the call connected. "I need you at the Broadmoor. Now, bring a medical kit, and I want a background search. Quiet." A pause, then Gregory's calm voice. "On my way." Henry ended the call and looked back at Mila. "You're not mad?" she asked again, softer. Henry glanced at the zip bag in his pocket, the stained cloth sealed like evidence, then back at her face. "I'm mad at the people who made you think you have to ask that," he said. Mila blinked, absorbing words she didn't yet have a place to store. Henry kept his voice gentle. "You said your daddy's name was Eric. Where is he now?" Mila's fingers found her bracelet, a thin braid of old string wrapped around her wrist. A tiny dull bead threaded through it, stamped with a single letter. "Ick." Henry's breath caught for half a second. Mila saw his eyes drop and yanked her sleeve down fast, defensive. "It's mine," she whispered. "I know," Henry said. "Who gave it to you?" Mila's voice shrank. "Daddy." The room's warmth suddenly felt fragile. Mila's gaze dropped to the soup. After the fire, she whispered. The lady took me at night. Henry held still. The lady? Mila nodded without looking up. I don't know her name. Duties. Unequivocally. Her nostrils flared once, like her body remembered before her mind did. She stopped chewing. Her eyes widened, unfocused, staring past the lamp, past Henry toward the door. Henry noticed the change instantly, the way her small body locked. Mila's nose twitched again. Then she whispered, barely audible, pure panic sliding under the words. The bleach. Henry's phone buzzed in his palm. A message from Gregory. Henry glanced down. A photo filled the screen. Grainy. Night. A burned stairwell. A stretcher at the edge of the frame. And on a chain, half melted against soot, a dog tag with 2 characters still readable. Eric C. Mila stared at the glowing screen, then snapped her eyes to the lounge door as if she could see through it. Her breathing turned shallow, fast. Anna's here, Mila whispered, the sentence broken by fear. She's here. A knock hit the door. Not gentle, not polite. 2 sharp raps, then another, harder. The smell of lemon polish didn't change. But Mila's face did, like she could taste something in the air the others couldn't. Her small fingers dug into Henry's sleeve. Henry slid the phone into his pocket without taking his eyes off the door. His other hand covered Mila's like a shield. No one takes you, he said, voice flat with certainty. Not again. The handle on the lounge door turned. The lounge door opened on a breath of cold air and a smell so clean it felt sharp. Mila's face went white. Her fingers clawed into Henry's sleeve, and her small chest stopped moving for a beat, like her body had learned how to disappear. Henry angled himself in front of her without making a show of it. His stance stayed calm, but his hand covered hers with quiet pressure. Gregory stepped inside first. Broad shoulders, tailored coat, eyes already scanning corners. A compact medical kit hung from his hand. A thin folder rode under his arm like it mattered more than a gun. Mila's nose twitched. She shrank back. Bleach, she whispered, the word turning into fear. Gregory stopped immediately. He lowered himself a fraction so he was not towering. He set the kit on the side table and opened it just enough for her to see sealed gauze, sterile wipes, and a small bottle of disinfectant with a bold printed label. That smell is this, Gregory said, tapping the bottle once. Hospital disinfectant, not her. Hey. Mila did not relax, but her eyes tracked the bottle instead of the doorway. That alone was a victory. Henry watched her face. He hated how fast a scent could steal a child's breath. He kept his voice steady. Lock the door. Gregory reached back and turned the interior bolt. The click sounded final. Mila flinched anyway. Henry crouched until his eyes were level with hers. You can say no to anything, he told her softly. Even to help. Mila's lips parted, then closed. She glanced at the toy in her lap, the plastic captain with one arm missing and a gold tie clip wedged where the arm should be. Then she looked back at Henry and gave a tiny nod. Permission, not surrender. Gregory pulled on gloves. The latex snapped once, clean and crisp. He peeled open an antiseptic wipe. The scent sharpened. Mila's shoulders tightened hard. Henry's hand slid to her wrist, not to hold her down. To hold her here. Look at me, he murmured. Mila's eyes locked onto his. The wipe touched her skin. Gregory cleaned the cut with careful pressure, then pressed gauze against it. Tape tore from the roll with a soft rip. Mila did not cry. Her lashes trembled, but she stayed still, like stillness was how you survived adults. Gregory's gaze flicked over her shoulder, elbow, the scraped knees. Bruising, he said quietly. Nothing obviously broken. She needs a proper exam. Henry nodded once. We go now. Gregory opened the folder on the table. Paper whispered. Fast check, he said. Eric C. Bronx fire, 2 weeks ago, hospital intake stamp. Henry's eyes stayed on Mila, but his body went rigid. Time. Gregory tapped the line. 21:14. Mila's fingers pinched at the string bracelet on her wrist, the old bead with a faint letter etched into it. Henry saw it. He did not reach for it yet. He filed it away like evidence and guilt. He asked her instead, gentle, controlled. Do you have a full name? Mila hesitated, then whispered, Mila Rose. The name landed in Henry's chest like it had been waiting there. Not because it meant something he could explain, but because it meant someone had once said it with love. Gregory closed the folder. "I can get a car to the service exit," he said. Henry reached into his pocket and pulled out the clear zip bag. Inside was his folded, monogrammed handkerchief, stained dark red. A few strands of Mila's hair clung to the cloth like the smallest witnesses. He slid it across the table to Gregory. "Chain it." Gregory's eyes dropped, then lifted. Time, location, handler, sealed. Mila watched the bag, suspicion flickering. "Is that trouble?" she asked, voice thin. Henry shook his head once. "That is protection," he said, "so no one can call you a lie." Mila swallowed and nodded like she understood more than she should. Henry stood. He did not offer a hand. He offered arms. Mila stared at the space between them, then climbed into him with sudden urgency, clinging to his blazer like it was the only solid thing in the room. Her body was light, too light for a child with a name. Henry adjusted her against his chest. He kept her face turned inward, away from any curious eyes that might be waiting. Gregory cracked the door and checked the corridor. "Clear," he said. Then he stepped out first, positioning himself as a moving wall. They moved down a back hallway where carpet swallowed footsteps. A service cart waited near the corner, its shelves stacked with spray bottles and folded towels. One bottle sat uncapped. A clear droplet slid down the plastic nozzle and fell onto the carpet with a tiny darkening spot. Mila saw it. Her whole body shuddered. Her face pressed deeper into Henry's chest. He felt the tremor in her ribs. Henry's voice stayed low and absolute. "Do not look," he told her. "Just breathe." 8. They passed the cart. The smell followed like a ghost. The stairwell door opened with a soft beep from Gregory's keycard. Inside, the air changed to cold concrete and old paint. The walls held the faint metallic tang of a place people forgot existed. At the bottom, the garage waited, dim and quiet except for the distant hum of ventilation. An unmarked car idled near a pillar. Gregory approached it, then paused, pulling the folder back out. "One more thing," he said. He flipped to a glossy, still image. Security camera, grainy, time-coded in the corner. Behind the restaurant, near the service entrance, a white van sat half in shadow, parked too neatly, waiting. Mila's appearance time was stamped on the frame. The van was already there. Henry's eyes narrowed. His voice did not rise. It was staged. Gregory nodded once. "Someone positioned a net. She walked into it, or she ran through it." Dap. Henry's grip tightened around Mila, not hurting her, just anchoring her in place. "No one gets a second attempt," he said. Gregory opened the rear door. Warm leather, heater running. Henry slid Mila in first, careful and slow. The seatbelt clicked. Mila jumped at the sound, then touched the belt as if checking it was real. Henry climbed in beside her. Mila leaned into him instantly. Gregory closed the door softly and moved to the driver's seat. The car rolled forward, tires whispering across concrete. The garage lights strobed across the windshield as they passed each beam. Henry watched Mila's hands, the way they trembled and then stilled when his palm covered them. Gregory's phone vibrated in the front, low and urgent. He glanced at the screen, then met Henry's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Street Luke's," Gregory said. "Dr. Patel. She just sent a note." Henry's gaze sharpened. "Say it." Gregory kept driving. His voice stayed flat, but the words hit like a crack of ice. "She says they found something in the wound. Not dirt. Not glass." Mila's head lifted slightly, eyes wide, listening without understanding. Henry's jaw locked. He pulled Mila closer, shielding her from whatever the next truth was going to be. "What?" Henry asked, each syllable controlled. Gregory's eyes stayed on the road. "A tiny metallic fragment," he said. "Embedded, like it came from something that broke." "Well," Henry's stare went past the windshield into the night like he could already see the shape of the people behind this. Mila's fingers curled into his sleeve again. "Are we going somewhere safe?" she whispered. Henry lowered his mouth near her hair. His voice was quiet, steady, irreversible. "We are," he said, "and anyone who tried to mark you like that made a mistake." The car climbed the ramp toward the street. City lights spilled over the hood. Behind them, the garage swallowed itself back into darkness. The hospital air tasted clean in the way a lie tastes clean, sharp, and chemical, like someone had scrubbed the world until it stopped looking human. Henry kept Mila tucked against his chest as they moved through a quiet corridor Gregory had cleared. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A distant monitor beeped in a steady rhythm that felt too calm for what was happening inside Henry's ribs. Mila's fingers were knotted in his lapel. Her broken plastic captain pressed between them, the gold tie clip Henry had used as a replacement arm catching light every time she breathed. Dr. Patel met them in a small exam room that felt more like a sealed box than a place for healing. The paper on the bed crinkled when the nurse smoothed it. The sink gurgled as the tap ran. Soap clicked from the dispenser. Mila's eyes snapped to the sound. Her nostrils flared once, fast. Henry felt it, that tiny animal alarm in her body. He lowered his voice until it was almost a thought. "You tell me to stop." "I stop," he said. She stared at him, searching. Then she gave the smallest nod. Dr. Patel washed her hands slowly, deliberately. The water rushed. The paper towel tore with a harsh rip. Mila twitched at the rip, then forced her face still. Dr. Patel approached like she was negotiating with a storm. "Hi, Mila. I'm going to look at your head. I will not hurt you." Mila did not speak. She watched Dr. Patel's hands. Gregory stood near the door, a wall with eyes. His attention never left the hallway window cut into the door, where shadows passed and disappeared. Dr. Patel peeled back the bandage. The antiseptic smell rose, bright and biting. Mila's shoulders lifted, then dropped as Henry's palm pressed lightly between her shoulder blades. "That smell," Mila whispered, almost inaudible. Henry's jaw tightened. "Not here," he murmured. "This is different." Dr. Patel leaned in, eyes narrowing. "There is something in the wound," she said softly. The nurse opened a sterile packet. Plastic crackled. Metal flashed under the light. Mila's breath hitched. Henry held his own breath, too. Like if he breathed wrong, the room would break. Dr. Patel used small forceps, careful as a jeweler. She angled the light, then lifted. A tiny fragment came free, no larger than a grain of rice. It glinted once, then clicked against the forceps. Mila made a small sound and tried to curl inward, but Henry's arm stayed firm around her, anchoring her to the present. Dr. Patel dropped the fragment into a clear specimen cup. Ping. The sound was sharp and final. It echoed off tile and glass and Henry's skull. The nurse capped the cup. Click. Dr. Patel wrote on a label with a black marker. The ink scratched faintly. She pressed the label down like she was sealing a secret. Then the stamp came down on a form. Thud. Henry felt the thud in his teeth. Another stamp. Thud. Dr. Patel's eyes stayed on the paperwork as she spoke, voice controlled. Metal. Not dirt. Not accident. Henry's gaze never left the specimen cup. His voice came out low. Bag it. Gregory already had a clear evidence pouch ready. He slid the cup inside, sealed it with a slow rasp of plastic on plastic, and signed across the seam. He offered the pen without looking to see if Henry would take it. Henry initialed once, hard enough to dent the paper beneath. Thud. The stamp hit again, like a judge's gavel, and Dr. Patel slid the intake sheet into a folder. Mila stared at the stamp like it was a weapon. Henry touched her cheek with the back of his knuckles. "You did good," he said. "You are brave." She swallowed. "Brave is when you have a choice," she whispered. Henry's throat tightened. "Then you get choices now," he said. Dr. Patel cleaned the wound and applied a fresh bandage. "No stitches," she said. "But she needs rest." Henry nodded, eyes still fixed on the specimen bag in Gregory's hand. "She'll get it." Dr. Patel lowered her voice, angling her body so the nurse could not read her lips. "You said a name earlier." Henry's eyes flicked up. "Eric." Dr. Patel hesitated, then opened the folder again, like she had been carrying this line on her tongue for hours. "We had an unidentified male brought in from a fire years ago," she said. "Late intake. The time on the report was 21:14. Henry's pulse stuttered. The number landed in the room like a second metal fragment, lodged deep. Dr. Patel continued, steady and careful. There was a melted dog tag recovered. The name on it was Eric C. The hum of the lights seemed louder. The beeping monitor suddenly sounded like a countdown. Henry felt his vision narrow to Mila's sleeping face. Her lashes clumped slightly from dried tears. Her fingers curled around the broken toy like it was a lifeline. Quietly, Henry said, "Can you compare DNA?" Dr. Patel nodded once. "Yes. We can run a rapid analysis. 4 hours. If I lock the lab and keep the chain clean. 4 hours. Not long enough to breathe. Long enough for someone to find them." Dr. Patel reached for a swab kit. The wrapper opened with a soft crackle. Mila's eyes fluttered open at the sound. She looked confused, then saw the cotton tip and froze. Henry leaned in. "Just your cheek," he whispered. "Soft, fast." Mila stared at him. Then she turned her face slightly, offering her cheek like she was offering trust. The nurse swabbed quickly. The tube capped with a clean click. Thud. Dr. Patel stamped the custody form again. Then she slid it into a plastic sleeve and sealed it, the seal snapping shut like a door. Henry watched every motion as if he could keep Mila alive by memorizing procedure. Gregory's phone vibrated in his palm, low and urgent. He glanced at the screen, then turned it toward Henry. On the screen was a black and white CCTV feed from the hospital lobby. People moved in a blur of coats and bags and hurried steps. And in the center of it all, perfectly still, stood a figure in a dark coat. Not pacing, not looking at the signs, not lost, waiting. Gregory zoomed in. The image pixelated, then sharpened. The figure's head turned slightly, as if they could feel the camera watching. Henry's skin went cold. Gregory's voice stayed level. "Someone at the front desk asked for Mila," he said. "By name." Dr. Patel's expression tightened. "No one should have her name," she said, quiet and furious. Mila sat up a fraction. Her nose moved, quick and searching. Her eyes widened as if she had just heard a sound nobody else could hear. "Sir," she whispered, voice small enough to break. "I smell it." Henry's gaze snapped to her. "What do you smell?" Her lip trembled. Her fingers gripped his sleeve like a child gripping the edge of a cliff. "Bleach," she said. "She's here." The hallway outside the room was silent for half a second, the kind of silence that makes your body brace before your mind understands why. Then the knock came. Not polite, not hesitant, firm, controlled, close. Henry did not move. His voice dropped to a whisper that could cut through bone. Gregory looked at the door, then at Henry. His hand slid inside his jacket, ready for whatever was allowed, ready for everything that was not. Henry bent toward Mila, forehead almost touching hers. "Do not look at the door," he murmured. "Look at me." Mila's eyes locked onto his. Wet, wide, trusting. Henry straightened slowly. He stared at the door like it was an enemy he had finally found. "Seal the lab," he said to Dr. Patel, voice cold and absolute. "No calls. No updates to the system. Nothing leaves your hands." Dr. Patel nodded. "I understand." Henry looked at Gregory. "Find out who that is," he said softly. "And if they take one more step toward this room, make them regret they ever learned her name." The knock came again, measured and certain, like whoever stood outside had done this before and had never been told no. Gregory lifted one finger, a silent signal for stillness, then shifted his body to block the narrow window in the door. He leaned in, listening for breath, for fabric movement, for the smallest clue. Henry kept his hand on Mila's shoulder, not gripping, just there. A promise made physical. Mila's eyes stayed on Henry's face, but her nose kept working like it had its own mind. She swallowed hard. "It's her," she whispered. "The clean smell." Dr. Patel didn't speak. She simply stepped to the counter, slid the specimen bag into a locked metal drawer, and turned the key with a soft click that sounded too delicate for how heavy the moment was. Gregory exhaled once through his nose, slow. Then he spoke through the door, calm enough to make fear feel foolish. "State your name and department." A woman's voice answered, warm on the surface, practiced underneath. "I'm here for the child. Hospital intake flagged an issue. I need to confirm guardianship. The metterding distance of the residence." Gregory's eyes didn't change. Through the glass. "Show credentials." A pause. A faint rustle of plastic. Then a badge lifted into the door window, angled so the overhead light washed out the details. Gregory didn't bite. "Lower it. Hold it still." Another pause. Longer. Then the badge lowered. Even through the glass, the photo looked too new, the laminate too clean, the smile too neutral, like it had been printed yesterday for a role someone planned to play today. Gregory took out his phone and snapped a photo without any drama, like he was photographing a receipt. Henry's voice stayed low. "Do not open that door." Gregory's gaze flicked to Henry, then back to the badge. "I'm not!" He tapped his screen once, then twice, sending the image to a contact Henry had never met but trusted anyway. Security systems, government databases, quiet channels that never asked permission. Outside, the woman's voice softened, as if kindness could dissolve protocol. "Sir, I don't want this to get complicated. The child is at risk. Let's do this properly." Mila flinched at the word properly, as if it meant something else in her world. She slid closer to Henry, trying to hide inside his suit. Henry leaned down until his lips were near her ear. "You are not going anywhere you don't choose," he whispered. Mila nodded, but her eyes were glassy with panic. Gregory's phone buzzed once. A reply came in fast. Not in the system. He looked up at the door window again and spoke as if he were bored. "Your badge does not validate." The warmth vanished from the voice outside. Not anger. Something colder. The sound of a mask slipping back into place. "That's impossible," the woman said. "Your network is probably down. The hospital has been having issues." Gregory smiled without humor. "So have the people who try to steal children." Silence. Then very faintly, a second sound from the hallway. A shoe scuff. Another presence, shifting weight. Henry felt the hair on his arms lift. One person at a door was a request. 2 people in a hallway was an operation. Gregory angled his head, listening. "You brought friends." The woman did not deny it. "Open the door," she said, gentle again, like a lullaby. "You're making this hard." Mila's breath turned shallow. Her gaze snapped past Henry's shoulder toward the door, despite herself. Henry lifted his hand and covered her eyes, not to blind her, but to give her somewhere to rest. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Just my voice." Dr. Patel stepped closer, her face pale but her posture steady. She kept her hands in view, palms slightly open, the universal language of, "I am not your enemy." Henry's mind moved like a blade. "Is there another exit?" Dr. Patel nodded toward a cabinet wall. "Supply corridor. It connects to staff elevators." Gregory heard her without looking. He was already moving, already planning. "Do it," he said. "Now." Henry stood, lifting Mila into his arms in one smooth motion. She clung to him, her small hands fisting in his shirt, her broken toy pressed between them like a talisman. As Henry turned toward the cabinet wall, the voice outside sharpened. "You don't understand," the woman said. "She doesn't belong to you." Henry didn't stop walking. He spoke softly, almost tender. "Nobody belongs to anybody. It's about OR." Gregory reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, flat and black. He placed it near the door hinge. Not a weapon, a sensor. He wanted proof, not a brawl. He wanted the kind of evidence that made powerful people disappear in courtrooms, not hallways. The woman's patience ended. The handle rattled once, then again harder. Mila's body went rigid. "She's going to take me," she whispered, the words raw with memory. Henry tightened his hold. "Not today," he said. Dr. Patel slid open the cabinet panel and revealed a narrow maintenance passage, lit by a single strip of fluorescent light that made everything look like a confession. Henry stepped in first, Mila against his chest. Dr. Patel followed, then Gregory, who didn't take his eyes off the exam room door until the last possible second. The handle jerked again. A heavy thump hit the door as if someone had leaned their full weight into it. Gregory pulled the panel shut. For a heartbeat, the only sound was their breathing, the hum of the corridor light, and the soft squeak of Henry's shoes on the tile. Then, from the other side of the panel, a voice, quieter now, slid through the seams like smoke. "I can smell her fear," the woman said. "It always smells the same." Mila trembled so hard Henry felt it in his bones. Henry's eyes went cold, not with rage, but with something cleaner and more dangerous. He looked at Gregory. "Find her name," he said. "Her real name." Gregory nodded once. "Already working." They reached the staff elevator. Dr. Patel swiped her card. The door opened with a cheerful ding that felt obscene. Inside, Gregory's phone buzzed again. A message. A single photo. Not of the lobby, not of the hallway, of Dr. Patel's lab door. Someone standing in front of it, hand lifted, about to enter. Gregory's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're not here for the child," he said. "They're here for the truth." 12th table by. Henry stared at the photo. His grip on Mila didn't change, but his entire body went still. Mila's head lifted slightly. Her nose flared once more, searching for the invisible. And then she whispered, terrified and certain. "She's not alone." The elevator doors opened into a colder kind of air. Not the clean cold of medicine, but the sharp cold of a place where secrets lived in metal drawers. Gregory moved first, quiet, controlled. He did not look like a man walking into danger. He looked like a man walking into work. Dr. Patel hugged her badge close to her chest as if it could protect her. Henry adjusted Mila higher in his arms, her cheek pressed to his collarbone. Her fingers held on tight, knuckles pale, like she expected the world to shake again. Mila lifted her head just enough to breathe in. Her eyes widened. She whispered one word. "Bleach." Gregory did not answer. He did not need to. The corridor lights hummed overhead, too bright, too steady. At the end of the hall, the lab door stood slightly ajar. That was the first wrong thing. The second wrong thing was the silence. No beeps, no printer chatter, no rolling cart. Just a stillness that felt staged. Gregory raised his hand and all of them stopped at once. He crouched, touched the floor near the lab threshold. His fingertips came back damp. Dr. Patel swallowed. "That is not water." Henry kept his voice low. "Lock it down." Gregory took out his phone and typed a short message with no emotion on his face. A second later, the distant sound of a security gate dropping echoed somewhere below them. Heavy, final. A hospital trying to remember that it had teeth. Gregory slid to the wall beside the lab entrance and looked through the narrow glass panel. Inside, a figure stood at the main bench. Dark coat, hair pulled back, hands covered in pale gloves. The person was leaning over the counter where Dr. Patel kept sealed samples. The figure was not searching. The figure was working. Gregory breathed once. Then he stepped into the doorway like he belonged there. The figure froze, slowly turned. A woman. Mid-30s maybe. Pretty in a careful way. The kind of face that could look harmless even while it lied. Her eyes flicked to Henry and Mila, then back to Gregory. Her voice came out calm. "You are making a mistake. Hospital protocol requires that we secure contaminated evidence." Dr. Patel could not help it. "That is my lab. You do not have clearance." The woman smiled a thin smile. "You would be surprised what I have." Mila shifted in Henry's arms and whispered again, shaking now. "It is her." Henry felt the words land in his ribs like a small stone thrown hard. Gregory did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply took one step closer and said, "Show your badge." The woman lifted a badge, quick and confident. Gregory did not glance at it. He looked at her wrist. A faint red line across the skin. Raw, chemical burn. The woman noticed his gaze and lowered her hand too fast. Gregory nodded once, like a decision had been made. "Put the sample down." The woman's eyes sharpened. "You do not understand who you are standing in front of." Henry stepped forward, still holding Mila, still gentle with her even as his gaze turned to ice. "I understand enough. You came for the truth, not the child." The woman laughed softly. "The truth is the child." And then she moved. Fast. A sudden sweep of her arm toward the counter. Her gloved hand shot for a sealed bag near the back. Not to steal it, to open it. Dr. Patel made a sound like a small gasp trapped behind teeth. Gregory crossed the space in a blur. He caught the woman's wrist mid-motion and twisted just enough. Not cruel, just precise. The badge snapped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull slap. The woman tried to pull away. Gregory stepped behind her, pinned her arm, and pressed her forward into the counter. Metal clinked, glass rattled, a specimen cup almost tipped. Henry saw it, the tiny metal fragment inside that cup, the glint of it like a tooth. The woman's voice changed. "Not warm now, not kind. Let me go." Gregory leaned in close to her ear, quiet authority in every syllable. "You are going to breathe slow. You are going to keep your hands where I can see them, and you are going to tell me your name." The woman jerked her head sideways, eyes cutting to Mila. For a second, her face softened, almost affectionate, like a predator recognizing a familiar cage. Mila hid her face against Henry again. Her breath hitched. Henry's jaw tightened. "Do not look at her." The woman smiled again, but this time it was ugly. He should have burned with the rest of them. Dr. Patel went rigid. "What did you say?" The woman did not answer Dr. Patel. She stared at Henry as if she wanted to enjoy the moment. "He begged me to keep her quiet. He said no one can know." Henry felt a slow heat rise behind his eyes. His voice stayed low anyway. "Say his name." The woman hesitated for half a heartbeat. Then she spoke, soft and poisonous. "Eric." Mila made a sound that was not a word. A small, broken noise. Gregory tightened his hold. "That is enough." Henry looked at Dr. Patel. "Secure everything. Now." Dr. Patel snapped into motion. She pulled a sealed pouch from a drawer and slid the specimen cup into it. She sealed it with shaking hands, then wrote her initials across the tape like she was signing a boundary no one could cross. Gregory kept the woman pinned. "You picked the wrong building." The woman laughed again, breathy. "Buildings are easy. People are easy. Children are easiest." Henry took one step closer, Mila still in his arms. He spoke to the woman without raising his tone. "You will never be near her again." The woman's eyes glittered with something like amusement. "You cannot stop what is already running." Dr. Patel looked at the analyzer on the far bench. Its lights were on. A process bar pulsed on the screen. She went pale. "It is already started." Henry followed her gaze. He understood instantly. Someone had triggered the test early, not to help them, to control what came out. Gregory's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then up at Henry. "Someone just accessed the lab system remotely. They are trying to overwrite the report as soon as it prints." Henry held Mila tighter. "Gregory." Gregory's voice stayed calm. "I have her. Protect the output." Dr. Patel moved to the printer, hands hovering like she was afraid to touch it. The machine began to whir. The woman turned her head just enough to speak. Her voice a whisper meant only for Henry. "When that paper comes out, you will learn what they took from him, and what they left inside her." The printer clicked. A sheet began to slide forward, and the hallway lights flickered once, as if the building itself had just realized it was under attack. The printer exhaled a final breath and went dead quiet. Dr. Patel held the sheet like it was still hot. Her fingers trembled once, then steadied. The corridor noise faded into something far away, as if the building itself leaned in to listen. Henry did not rush her. Mila slept against his chest, mouth parted, lashes damp. One small hand was still curled into his shirt like she was afraid the world might pull her away if she let go. Gregory kept the woman at the counter. His forearm was a bar across her path. His voice was flat. "Do not move." The woman smiled, unbothered. Her coat was dark. Her hair was pinned back too neatly for someone who claimed to be no one. And even from this distance, the air around her carried that clean, sharp chemical bite that did not belong in a hospital. Henry extended his hand. The report. Dr. Patel hesitated. Then she placed it in his palm like she was handing over a verdict. He read without blinking. Over his shoulder, the top line sat in bold, just clear enough for anyone watching to catch it before his fingers covered it. Paternity probability, 99.9. Henry's eyes did not widen. He did not sway. He did not give the room a single crack to crawl into. He folded the paper once, clean and deliberate, and slid it into the inside pocket of his coat. Then he lifted his gaze to the woman. Her smile sharpened, like she could taste the shift in him. "You see it now?" she murmured. "The child is not a problem. The child is proof." Mila stirred at the sound. Her nose twitched. Her eyes opened just enough to find Henry's face, then darted toward the counter. Her whisper was small, but it cut through everything. "She smells like the cleaning room." The woman's eyes softened for the shortest beat. Not kindness, recognition, like a lock, hearing the right key. Henry turned his body a fraction, blocking Mila from that look. His voice stayed low. "You do not get to look at her." The woman gave a quiet laugh. "You think money builds walls thick enough. You think power makes a child untouchable." Henry leaned closer, so close the only thing between them was air and intent. His voice became a whisper. the kind that made people listen harder instead of pulling away. If you come near her again, the world will learn your name, and you will not like what happens after that. Her smile thinned. Names are for people who still want forgiveness. Gregory tightened his grip, preparing to move her. Who are you? The woman glanced toward the hallway, toward the elevators, toward every exit like she already owned the map. Call me whatever helps you sleep. Then she angled her head toward Henry, voice barely there. He begged me once, the same way you will. Something cold ran through Dr. Patel's posture. Gregory's jaw tightened. Mila pressed her face deeper into Henry's chest as if she could hide inside his heartbeat. Henry did not react the way she wanted. He did not ask questions. He did not bargain. He gave one instruction. Gregory, remove her. Gregory started to guide the woman away. She walked like she was being escorted to a meeting, not dragged from a crime scene. As she passed Henry, she let her words brush his ear. That paper does not make you strong. It makes you predictable. Henry watched her disappear down the corridor. Then his phone vibrated. Trevor, Henry answered without shifting Mila. Speak. Trevor's voice was clipped. Corporate panic held tight in a suit of confidence. We have board members calling. Hospital lockdown alerts. People are linking your name to this. Tell me you are not doing something reckless. Henry looked down at the sleeping child in his arms. The bruise at her hairline. The way her fingers still clung even in sleep. Trevor pushed harder. Are you really about to trade the Empire for a child with no verified origin? Henry reached out with his free hand. Dr. Patel placed a clipboard against the counter, already prepared, like she had seen enough in her career to recognize a crisis that needed paperwork as fast as it needed medicine. A hospital administrator arrived, pale and sweating. A notary followed, confused and hurried, stamping and fumbling with a bag of tools like a man called into a storm. Henry balanced the phone between shoulder and jaw. His other arm stayed locked around Mila. His hand took the pen. Trevor's voice sharpened. Henry, do not do anything irreversible. Henry signed. His signature was smooth, unbroken. Emergency guardianship. Temporary authority. The kind of ink that changed doors from locked to open and turned a child from vulnerable to protected by law. The notary stamped the paper. The sound hit the room like a gavel. Thud. Henry did not flinch. Trevor heard it through the line. What was that? Henry's voice stayed calm. That was priority. He signed again. Dr. Patel's eyes flicked to the name line, then to Mila, then away, like she was witnessing something sacred and dangerous. Trevor lowered his voice, trying to control the narrative. This will rupture confidence. Investors, regulators, your name is the company. Henry spoke softly, with the kind of certainty that made arguments feel childish. Then the company will learn to stand without me. Trevor inhaled, furious. You cannot. Henry cut him off, gentle and final. It is already irreversible. At that exact moment, Gregory's phone buzzed. His face changed. The service cameras just went dark. Someone cut the feed in the lower level. Henry's eyes lifted, sharp now, alive with the kind of focus that did not belong in boardrooms. Down below, where no one was watching, an elevator opened. A pair of black leather shoes stepped out onto the concrete. The heel crushed something small and gold. A tie clip. A bright, harmless thing, flattened underfoot like a promise that had slipped out of sight. And somewhere overhead, a security light blinked red once, then died. The elevator doors stayed open too long, as if the building was holding its breath. Gregory moved first, quiet and controlled, one hand near his waistband, the other lifting a small flashlight that cut a thin white blade through the basement dark. The concrete smelled damp and old, but under it lingered something sharper, cleaner, wrong. Henry did not let the hallway swallow him alone. He shifted Mila higher on his shoulder, felt her warm weight, the steady rise of her breath. Dr. Patel had argued for a guarded room upstairs. Henry had answered with one sentence and an expression that ended the discussion. She does not leave my sight. They stepped out into the lower level. A security light above the elevator flickered. The red dot of a camera was dead. Someone had not simply disabled it. Someone had done it with confidence, with time, with access. Gregory's beam found the crushed tie clip. Gold flattened into the concrete, bent like a small, broken wing. He crouched, careful not to touch it with bare skin. His eyes tracked outward, following the story the floor was willing to tell. A faint smear, a scuff mark that did not match hospital shoes. A single wet footprint that shone for a second, then disappeared. Henry inhaled once. Bleach. Not a lingering cleaning smell. Not a casual wipe down. Fresh, intentional, like a signature left on the air. Mila's fingers tightened against Henry's shirt before she even opened her eyes. Her mouth shaped a sound that was almost silent. She is here. Henry did not ask how she knew. Children did not invent terror that specific. He turned his body so Mila's face pressed into his shoulder. He lowered his voice until it was just vibration in his chest. You do not look. Gregory moved toward the service corridor. The basement widened into a maze of locked doors, supply cages, and utility panels. The kind of place where people assumed nothing important could happen because nobody important ever went there. The flashlight caught a cleaning cart parked too neatly beside a fire door. A spray bottle sat on top, label peeled clean, the plastic still beaded with fresh liquid. A pair of black gloves lay folded like they had been set down for a moment and would be picked up again any second. Gregory's jaw tightened. Someone staged this. Henry's gaze dropped to the floor. A thin line of moisture led away from the cart, faint but deliberate, like breadcrumbs meant for a hunter. The kind that also worked as a warning. Gregory spoke into his earpiece, low. West stairwell sealed. Feeds are cut. I want every exit watched. Now. No answer came back for a beat. Then, a crackle. Copy. But the basement repeater is compromised. Henry felt the building tilt again, the way it did when money and power stopped working and only instincts mattered. A metal door at the far end clicked softly. Not a slam, not a break-in. A polite sound. Someone who belonged. Gregory lifted his hand, signaling stop. He approached the door, listened. Nothing. Then, from the other side, a slow, dragging sound, like rubber wheels rolling across concrete. The cart moved. Henry's stomach went cold. It was not a person running. It was a person taking their time. Gregory reached for the handle. Henry whispered, "Wait." He looked down at Mila. Her eyes were open now, wide and glassy, staring at a point over Henry's shoulder like she could see through walls. Her voice came out in a thin thread. She sings sometimes, when she thinks nobody is there. The words raised the hair on Gregory's arms. Henry's voice stayed calm, but something in it sharpened. Stay with me. Breathe. Mila tried. Her small chest fluttered. Henry kept his hand firm on her back, steadying the rhythm. Gregory opened the door. Inside was a short utility hallway, lined with pipes and a humming electrical box. Another cleaning cart sat there, identical, like a mirror. And taped to the electrical panel was a folded piece of paper. No envelope, no signature, just a message written in thick black marker. You will choose wrong at 2114. Henry did not touch it. Gregory photographed it, then pulled on gloves and lifted it by the corner into an evidence sleeve. Chain it, Henry said. Gregory nodded once. His voice was iron, logged, sealed, time-stamped. A sound drifted from farther down the hall. Not footsteps. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on plastic. Mila's breath hitched, her face buried harder into Henry's shoulder. Henry moved, slow and silent, stepping past the second cart, past the pipes, toward the source. Gregory stayed half a step ahead, flashlight low, angle tight, ready. The tapping stopped. A door at the end of the hallway was cracked open, just enough to leak a thin line of light. Gregory leaned in. A whisper slid out through the gap, so soft it could have been air moving. He is predictable now. Henry's eyes went hard. Then, from above them, Henry's phone vibrated against his palm. Dr. Patel, he answered without speaking. Her voice came through, strained and urgent, as if she was running while she talked. The lab analyzer just finished. The profile is a match to the unidentified male record you flagged. And the child is not what you feared. Henry closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Not feared. Prayed. Dr. Patel swallowed audibly. The relationship is confirmed. She is his, and you are next of kin. In the same instant, Mila lifted her head. Her gaze snapped toward the cracked door. Her lips trembled. She is going to take me back, she whispered. She said the man with the silver watch would try to be a hero. She said heroes always open the wrong door. Henry's hand tightened around Mila, not hurting, just anchoring. Gregory's flashlight beam steadied on the door seam. From the other side came one more sound. A small, bright ping, metal tapping glass. Like something dropped into a specimen cup, and Henry understood, with sick clarity, that the basement was not the only place someone could leave a message. Someone had been close enough to touch the truth. The ping did not belong in a utility hallway. It was too clean, too deliberate, too familiar to be a coincidence. Gregory froze for half a breath, then moved without noise. He shifted his flashlight away from the cracked door and aimed it down at the floor, as if the light itself could catch whatever was hiding. Henry did not step forward. He stepped back. Not out of fear, out of control. He turned his body so Mila became a shielded center point, her cheek pressed to his collar, her small hands gripping the fabric like it was the only real thing left in the world. Gregory whispered into his earpiece. "Lab status. Now." Static answered him. Then a broken voice from security, thin with panic. "The lab door is open. Nobody is inside. The analyzer is still running." Henry kept his voice low. "Lock the floor, every stairwell, every service exit, and cut the public elevators." Gregory's eyes flicked to Henry. "You are thinking she was in there?" Henry did not blink. "I am thinking she was everywhere." Mila made a sound that was almost a sob. Henry felt it through his shirt. He leaned down until his mouth was near her ear. "You stay with me. You breathe. You do not listen for her voice. You listen for mine." Mila nodded once, fast and frightened. Gregory reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sealed bag. Inside was the folded note they had just collected. He did not open it again. He held it like a live wire. "Chain is intact," he said. "But the message is clear. She knew we would come down here." Henry watched the cracked door. The line of light under it did not move. Someone on the other side was still, waiting for them to make the first mistake. Henry lifted his phone and called Dr. Patel back. When she answered, her breathing was uneven. "Where are you?" Henry asked. "In the lab corridor. I left the door open on purpose. I needed air." "Do not go back inside," he said. "Do not touch anything. Do not speak to anyone you do not recognize. Gregory is sending a team to you." Dr. Patel swallowed. "I stamped the report and printed 2 copies. One is in my pocket, one is locked in the cabinet with the other samples." Henry heard the hum of fear behind her words. "Good. Now listen carefully. If anyone asks you about the child, you tell them nothing. You tell them you have no patient by that name. You understand." A pause. Then Dr. Patel whispered, "Yes." Henry ended the call and looked at Gregory. "We are not going upstairs," Gregory said. "Not yet." "No," Henry agreed. "We are going sideways." Gregory turned his flashlight to the service corridor, scanning for another route. His beam caught a small puddle near the second cleaning cart. The liquid shivered, as if something had just passed through and the air had not finished settling. Bleach, fresh, strong. Mila sniffed once, sharp, involuntary. Her body stiffened like a trapped animal. Henry felt her panic spike. He did not comfort her with promises. He comforted her with decisions. "Gregory," he said, "move her." Gregory nodded. He took off his jacket and draped it around Mila like a blanket, then lifted her gently from Henry's shoulder. Mila clung to Henry for a second, eyes wide, begging without words. Henry touched her forehead with his fingertips. "You are safe. Look at me. Only me." Mila looked. Her breathing slowed, just enough. Gregory carried her the way professionals carry something fragile in a disaster. Close, protected, face turned inward. Henry stayed behind them, watching the cracked door. The whisper had been soft, almost tender, but it had landed like a blade. "He is predictable now." Henry did not feel predictable. He felt awake. They moved through the utility maze, past pipes that sweated and vents that hummed. The basement felt like the underside of a living creature, warm and mechanical and indifferent. Gregory led them to a locked stair door. He did not use a keycard. He used an override code. The door clicked open. Inside was a narrow stairwell with no cameras and no signage. The kind of stairwell built for staff, not for visitors. the kind of stairwell that never made it into the glossy brochures. Halfway up, Gregory stopped and listened. Above them, a soft footfall. Not hurried, not heavy, measured. Gregory raised one finger, warning Henry to stay still. Mila's face pressed into Gregory's shoulder. Her eyes were open again, staring over his arm. Her lips moved. She is close. Henry's hand curled into a fist so tight his knuckles whitened. He forced his breathing to stay even. Gregory leaned into his earpiece again. West stairwell. Someone is moving down. Lights are out on levels 2 through 4. I need a visual. The reply came fast. We lost feed. Someone looped the cameras. Henry's voice cut through, calm and cold. Then we do it old school. Eyes on. Bodies in place. No one touches the child. A new voice came through. Lower. Steadier. Copy. Team is converging. Gregory moved again. Quicker now, but silent. They climbed to a landing and slipped through a door that opened into a restricted corridor behind the surgical wing. The air changed immediately. Sterile, cold, chemical. Mila trembled. Henry stepped close and put his hand on her back, grounding her through the fabric of Gregory's jacket. Ahead, a nurse rounded the corner and stopped short when she saw them. Her eyes went wide, then darted past them, toward the stair door they had just used. Henry read the fear on her face. Someone had already asked her questions. Henry did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He spoke softly, like a man speaking to a locked safe. You did not see her. You did not speak to anyone about her. You are going to walk away now, and you are going to forget this hallway exists. The nurse swallowed, nodded too quickly, and backed away like she had almost stepped into traffic. Gregory carried Mila into an empty exam room and set her down on the bed. She did not release his sleeve until Henry stepped closer. Henry sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could feel his presence without being crowded. Mila looked up at him. Her voice shook. She said she would take me where nobody can hear me. Henry's eyes stayed on Mila, but his mind mapped the building. Cut cameras, open lab, whisper in the basement, footsteps in the stairwell. A threat that moved like it owned the place. He answered Mila with the truth he could guarantee. Nobody takes you. Gregory stepped to the door and cracked it open a fraction. In the corridor, 2 men in hospital security uniforms passed by. Their posture was wrong. Their hands were too still. Their eyes were too flat. Gregory watched them for a long second. Then he closed the door without a sound. He turned to Henry and spoke in a voice so low it barely existed. Those are not ours. Henry did not move. His face did not change. But something in his gaze hardened into a promise. Then we stop pretending this is a hospital problem, he said. He reached into his inner pocket and pulled out his phone. Not to call for help. To call for war? Outside the exam room, someone knocked once, polite and unhurried. And from the other side of the door, a woman began to hum a lullaby, soft and steady as if she already knew the child was inside. The humming slipped through the door like smoke. Soft, patient, familiar in the way nightmares are familiar. Mila's hands flew to her ears, not to block the sound, but to hold herself together. Her eyes locked on Henry's face, searching for the moment he would turn into someone else. He did not. Henry rose from the edge of the bed without a sound. He took one step, then another, until he stood between Mila and the door. His posture was calm, almost lazy, the way a storm looks calm from far away. Gregory moved first. He slid his hand under his jacket. Not dramatic, not rushed. He flicked the lock on the exam room door, then reached for the handle as if he was opening a normal conversation. Henry stopped him with 2 fingers on his wrist. Not yet, Henry murmured. The humming continued. A lullaby that did not belong in a hospital. A lullaby that belonged in a place where children learned to stay quiet. Mila whispered. She knows my name. Henry turned his head slightly, just enough for Mila to see his mouth. Then, she does not get to say it again, he said. He lifted his phone and spoke into it, voice low, precise. Corridor outside surgical wing. Seal it. Nobody in, nobody out. If anyone claims they are security, verify with Gregory. If they resist, do not escalate. Contain them. A pause. A reply came through, tinny and urgent. Copy. Henry put the phone away. Then, at last, he reached for the door. He opened it just enough to see the hallway, just enough to make it clear he was not hiding. On the other side stood a woman in a dark coat, hands folded in front of her like she was attending a funeral. Her hair was neat, her smile was gentle, her eyes were empty. The bleach smell was not strong now. It did not need to be, because Mila's fear filled the space for it. The woman stopped humming. She tilted her head. "Henry Cole," she said softly. "You were easier before. You used to love being protected by money." Henry looked at her the way people look at a stranger who has already crossed a line they cannot uncross. "You are in the wrong hallway," he said. Her smile widened, as if he had said something sweet. "I am exactly where I belong. I came for what is mine." Behind Henry, Mila made a small sound, like a wounded animal trying not to be noticed. Henry did not glance back. He kept his eyes on the woman. "Nothing in this room belongs to you," he said. The woman's gaze slid past him, hungry, searching for the child. "I can smell her fear," she whispered. "It always smells the same, like pennies, like wet metal." Henry's voice stayed quiet. "You are not leaving this floor." The woman gave a tiny laugh. "You think doors stop me." A second voice cut in from the corridor, sharp and controlled. "Mom, step away from that door." 3 figures appeared at the far end of the hallway, moving with purpose, real security. Their pace was measured, their hands visible, their faces tense with the kind of focus that comes from knowing something is wrong but not knowing how wrong yet. The woman did not flinch. She simply raised one hand and held up an employee badge. It looked clean, official, convincing. One of the security guards hesitated. Henry watched the hesitation and felt something cold settle in his chest. The woman's eyes met his again. "You built an empire," she said, "but you never learned how to see the people under it. That is why your boy burned and you never even smelled the smoke." The words hit like a slap. Henry did not move, but Mila did. She slid off the bed, small feet landing on the floor with a soft thump. She did not come to the door. She came to Henry. She wrapped her arms around his leg and pressed her forehead into his thigh, shaking. Henry lowered his hand and rested it on her head. Then he spoke, not to the woman, but to the security guards watching this standoff. "Call the police," Henry said, "and call the hospital administrator. Tell them a predator is impersonating staff and stalking a child. Tell them we have evidence. Tell them chain of custody is active." The woman's smile twitched. For the first time, something like annoyance flickered across her face. "You cannot prove anything," she said. "You are just a rich man with a soft heart and a scared little girl." Gregory's voice came from behind Henry, closer than the woman expected. "Actually, we can." Gregory stepped into the hallway holding a sealed evidence bag. Inside was the small metal fragment, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. In his other hand, he held a phone on speaker. A recorded voice filled the corridor. Male, tired, breath-catching like the speaker had been running from something for a long time. "Henry, if you get this, do not ask why, just listen. Do not let her end up in the system. Do not let them change her name. Her name is Mila Rose. Please, please." The voice cracked on the last word. Silence followed, heavy as concrete. Henry's throat tightened. His eyes did not leave the woman, but his whole body changed. Not rage, not panic. Resolve. The woman's smile did not return. It could not, because the voice on the phone had named the child like a blessing and a warning. The security guard stepped forward again, this time without hesitation. The woman took one slow step back. Gregory lifted his phone and spoke, clear and loud enough for the corridor cameras that were now live again. "Suspect is retreating. Maintain distance. Do not engage alone. Officers are incoming." The woman's gaze snapped to Mila one last time. And in that glance, Henry saw the truth. This was not a person who wanted a child. This was a person who wanted silence. Henry leaned down, lips near Mila's hair. "You hear that voice?" he whispered. "That was love. That was a promise. And now it is mine, too." Mila's grip tightened. The woman turned and walked away, unhurried, as if she still believed she could come back for what she wanted. Henry watched her go. Then he looked at Gregory. "Find her," Henry said, quietly, completely. Gregory nodded once. In the corridor, the sound of approaching sirens began to swell, and Mila, still shaking against Henry's leg, whispered the last thing that made his blood run cold. "She knows another song," she said. She sings it when someone disappears.